Hello guys and welcome back. Today I'm going over the unique weapon manufacturer introduced in the Borderlands Online MMO and how I think it could and should be implemented by Gearbox, potentially in Borderlands 3. But even if that doesn't happen, I think the game series needs new weapon manufacturers in general and could be really good for the series moving on to branch out. But with that, let's get right into it. Before I start, if you guys have no idea what the Borderlands Online MMO is, then you can go watch my 2 history videos I made on it. I'll link them down below. They're in 2 parts, and I think they were like my 5th video ever posted, so just be warned about that. Fun fact, I was going to make the idea of Polaris, the new weapon manufacturer, coming out way long ago, but I couldn't get the thumbnail right and didn't really know what I wanted to say, so it got scrapped, but now we're back. And long story short on the MMO, basically it was licensed to Shonda Games and a few other Chinese developers to work on it and then adapt the Borderlands series to a growing kind of different game market. But then the company ended up closing down and rumors have been up and down about potentially bringing this game to mobile, but we really don't know. An important thing to note too is that this game was only licensed. Gearbox was not super involved. So chances of Gearbox caring about this exclusive weapon manufacturer is probably not great. So Polaris. What we know is that this was going to be a unique weapon manufacturer to this new game. Also, because the game was cancelled pretty early on, not much is actually known about the manufacturer themselves or their weapons. But from what I've gathered, they were heavily promoted in the whole game to get people to want to buy it. And in particular, they promoted just one Polaris gun, which we actually have a lot of pictures of, and it was everywhere when marketing. Other than that, I really haven't seen any videos using the gun or any other Polaris gun for that matter. But if we break down the look of the gun, it does look futuristic, along with some sort of almost organic organism that's kind of growing through the gun and around it. The organism itself is a green color, which is usually associated with corrosive in the series, and in this case, I would say it's a safe bet that it is corrosive. But the weapon itself does not look very alien. And also another important thing to note is that the weapon itself doesn't look like a organism, alien. It just looks kind of futuristic, like the alien almost attached to it after the gun was created. And I wish we would have gotten more backstory on this weapon itself. Along with what you saw in the thumbnail, we were also shown a Polaris ship, which implies that they were most likely a manufacturer, along with the Chinese text in the corner, which translates to just starship basically, which is no real help. But the ship itself, also important to note, is that it doesn't look like that same organic material that was on the weapon, so it just looks super futuristic. So the gun was definitely an exception. I'm not sure if the ship had any story missions, but I do know it was used for the PvP side of the game as an arena, which was really cool. And we also have one other picture of back on Pandora, or what we presume is Pandora. I'm pretty sure it is. There's a Polaris poster and someone crossed it out. So obviously the people of Pandora don't look too fondly upon this new manufacturer and Polaris themselves. So now let's go to my favorite segment, the history breakdown. If you guys are familiar with a ton of Borderlands parallels to ancient Greek, but when you look Polaris up, you learn that it was just known to be a dog's tail as part of a constellation in early Greek, which doesn't really help. But if you dig further, you learn that Polaris is also the name given to the North Star. And if we look at the lore behind the North Star and Polaris in China, because that's where the game was made, Shonda Games and everything, we see that Chinese had many names for the star, but there's really no more important information there. So maybe Polaris is just a cool name. You can see the design itself. It does have the yellow dot almost right in the O of the name Polaris, and that shoots out in all sides. So maybe that's a parallel to the North Star, to the star, whatever it would have ended up being in the story. Maybe there would have been more parallels there. Now, while I understand that the game was meant for a different market and was running on the Borderlands 1 engine, and even the gameplay was weird, I loved the art style that they were going with this game. Not the gameplay itself, but the art they were putting out. Like this loading screen that was on the thumbnail, the Polaris Ship, looks awesome and looks like they could have thrown that into one of the main numbers like 1, 2, or the pre-sequel. So while the gameplay looked nothing like the concept art and loading screens or character art, it would be amazing to see Gearbox maybe embrace this bright color futuristic style more. The bright neon colors are awesome to see in a game that was majority brown and still doesn't feel futuristic when you compare what these people did with the same engine that Borderlands 1 was in. Which I understand Pandora was meant to be rustic, but this could be really cool if Gearbox did decide to embrace colors and space and really cool things. Me personally, I would love to see Gearbox take this manufacturer, or maybe even just the one weapon, and add it into Borderlands 3 somehow as an Easter egg. I mean, this game still existed, it still had the Borderlands name, so it'd be really cool for Gearbox to embrace some of these things and bring it all together in Borderlands 3 just as a nod to those fans, and new fans will just think, oh, it's a cool gun, like a Polaris alien weapon. Even that, though, I would say is highly unlikely, but that doesn't mean that Gearbox shouldn't add new manufacturers in general. I know that we still don't know much about the manufacturers we have now, lore-wise, but Gearbox should just keep expanding that, especially if we are going to be exploring the universe in Borderlands 3. There are bound to be more manufacturers in general, like maybe small mom and pop shops that make weird guns, or really big corporations we've never seen before. Either way, if anyone from Gearbox is watching, bring back Polaris, it'd be so cool. But let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think Polaris should be brought back? Or do you even think that Gearbox should add more manufacturers? Because they still need to work on the ones they have now, but I don't know. Gearbox can make it all work. But with that, like, comment, subscribe, and see you guys in the next one.